Good morning, YouTube. Today I kind of wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind recently. Basically, the story is that I had dinner with a family member recently, and they are immigrants from the Philippines. They have a daughter now, and she is in college. Parents want their child to spend at least 1 year in the Philippines for college, and of course, her parents have immigrated and built such a better life for themselves and for their kids. You know, of course, they're gonna spoil the daughter a little bit. As adamant as the parents are towards pushing their child to spend a year in the Philippines, the daughter is unfortunately very adamant not to do that. And one of the reasons that I recall hearing from her parents is that, one, it's very dirty. Two, that she would only go there for summer for a vacation only. And that really triggered me and kind of got me thinking, because not too long ago, I probably would have been in the same position as she was. I think had I not gone to the Philippines myself as a sentient, fully grown adult, spent time with my parents and gone to my parents' provinces, I probably would have had the same opinion as my niece. I think that's correct. For me, as you guys may or may not know, I was born and raised in America, and then I lived in the Philippines for a year, and I do intend on going back once COVID is over. Some things that I did learn are that the Philippines is an absolutely beautiful country. To counteract her argument, my niece's argument, that the Philippines is dirty, yes, I agree it is dirty, and her parents both agree it is dirty. To an extent, everything's relative, right? San Francisco has its own dirty problems, like homelessness, drug abuse, etc., needles on the floor. But I guess for her, in her eyes, the rampant poverty and the slums that you would find in Tondo or a lot of places in the province too are unappealing to her. And that is something unfortunate and is a consequence of many things in the Philippines. Totally different conversation. But in my case, I've been so fortunate to go to so many places in the Philippines, from Tawi-Tawi most recently, which is a third-class province. These are not hype travel destinations in the Philippines for tourism. You know, they're not Palawan, they're not Boracay, they're not Siargao. But while these are island provinces that are poor compared to Manila or compared to America, they are so rich in culture that I definitely think that there's beauty in that. It's something that gives you more intrinsic tie to your culture and your heritage. And also to counteract the second part of her thoughts, which was she only wants to go here for vacation. Honestly, I would probably say that living in the Philippines for a year isn't even that bad, because you have access to so many places, so many beautiful places, not just Palawan, not just Boracay, but all these beautiful small provincial beaches that you can go to. This is something I mentioned in my previous vlog where I described my experiences living in the Philippines for a year and then coming back here. I definitely think this mindset of not wanting to return to the Philippines or wanting to return only for vacation is definitely something that is kind of escapist in a way. And I'm definitely guilty of it. And living in the Philippines for a year has definitely made me come out of it so much better. It's something that I definitely advocate for. So the question that I pose is, should Filipino Americans spend a year in the Philippines? Maybe even more than that? Maybe even half a year minimum? My answer is yes. One of the problems that I mentioned in that prior vlog is that I think Filipino Americans definitely don't have a strong sense of their community and their culture. Unfortunately, there are still remnants of that neo-colonial mindset and pursuit of American dream, which is great for all immigrants, but at the cost for Filipino Americans of kind of giving up that part of our Philippine heritage. And for my niece, who's so reluctant to go back and spend time there unless it's for vacation, is a symptom of that, unfortunately. It's not something that's easy to change, but it's something that I hope to promote and advocate for, because even if there's so many problems in the Philippines and there's a lot of issues and it is perceived as dirty or whatever, there's so much more to learn and there's so much more to appreciate about our culture. Because if I, as a Philam, only know the Philippines for the beaches, then I'm not really doing it that much of a service in terms of culture. For me personally, I don't want to be in my 50s or 60s and eventually have kids and have them not unaware of their own Philippine culture. If I end up marrying someone outside of my own ethnicity, I definitely want my child to maintain that half of their ethnic identity. So again, I pose the question, should Filipino Americans live in the Philippines for 6 months minimum? Yes. Absolutely yes. And I think this is not only applicable for Filipino Americans, but in general, for any immigrant coming into America or any other country. I have a friend who is of Hispanic descent and he lived in Mexico for half a year and he wanted to do something similar to me, which is connect to his heritage through food. He spent half a year there and learned how to make, tacos and more ethnic, indigenous, local foods. And that's only one example. I know people that lived in Japan to reconnect with their Japanese heritage, people who moved to Korea, people who moved to China, etc. No matter what problem our own indigenous native country has, we should confront it, experience it, and accept it as an aspect of our culture and ultimately our identity. These are my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below if you vibe, if you don't vibe. Have you lived abroad and connected with your native country before? If not, what's stopping you? Just something to think about. Yeah. All right, well, I'm gonna get back to work. Maybe brew another cup of coffee too.